While Dr. King was bonded with his Alpha brothers, he was also careful not to allow that bond to overshadow any kinship he had with other protesters, who also laid their lives on the line for the civil rights struggle.
I don't believe I ever once gave Martin Luther King the Alpha handshake. We knew we were members of the same fraternity, and just to raise the question was to put it a little additional division. And there were too many ways already that black people were being divided up.
According to Brother Andrew Young, the fraternity was more than a brotherhood.
What I remember getting from the fraternity was a concept of leadership. You forget, but Martin Luther King got a C in public speaking at Morehouse. So he wasn't a born Morehouse speaking candidate. Our characters were being formed in those days.
Racial tensions were at an all-time high, and the retaliation became more violent and life-threatening. Although the brothers were under a microscope of scrutiny, Dr. King's magnetic personality offered some comic relief.
Dr. King was one of the most fun-loving people you ever want to meet. But you didn't see that in him as he moved around from day to day. When he was in a small group of guys, he could tell jokes for hours. He could sit there and listen to jokes for hours and laugh like crazy, you know.
It was always serious, but Martin always made it fun. I mean, I used to say that years ago, if there was somebody that could play Martin Luther King, you know, as I knew him in private, it would be Eddie Murphy. Because he was always cracking jokes, he was always signifying. He would mimic various preachers, just caricaturing our friends and brothers. At the times when we should have been afraid, such as when we were going into Birmingham, he'd say, now we're not gonna all make it out of Birmingham. Birmingham really is Birmingham. That's the nastiest town in the world. We're not gonna all make it out of there. And just as he'd do that, then he'd say, but don't worry. If they get you, I will preach the best funeral you've ever had, anybody ever had.
Do you remember the last time you saw Dr. King alive?
The last time I heard him speak, he was a powerful speaker. And he preached the same way he spoke. When Martin got through, still preaching, he turned and started back to his seat. But he stopped. And he called a lady and said, have the choir join with you in singing my favorite song. And she started singing. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or a song, if I can show somebody he's traveling wrong, then my living shall not have been in vain. I had never heard that song before. But those words stuck with me and been in my mind ever since that day.
While supporting black Memphis sanitation workers, King and other members of his entourage, including some of his Alpha brothers, were staying at the now infamous Lorraine Motel.
He was staying in Lorraine like I was. He was in 306 under Lorraine, and I was in 308. I heard the shouting. And for some reason or another, I immediately assumed it to be Martin. That's the way things were at that time. And they got Martin, put him in an ambulance. I got in my car and went to the hospital. The doctor came to the door. He didn't take me in there. So he looked me straight in the eye and said, he's dead.
When we come back, the brothers launch a movement for a monument.
We need to do something for Dr. King on the mall. That was the one sentence, the select words that gave birth to this.
In 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill making Martin Luther King Jr. Day a national holiday. But the Alphas wanted something more to commemorate their fraternity brother. So they created an idea so magnificent, it seemed almost impossible.
Two young men, young Alpha men, came over with the notion of a monument in Martin's honor.
We had no money, no office, no staff. Only the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha willing to make contributions on an annual basis to keep the idea of a memorial alive.
When I became president, my task was to go raise the money. And I don't think anybody had a thought when this thing first was conceived that it would cost $120 million.
From the outset, I thought at the least it would be 2 years, at a maximum it would be 7. So I felt comfortable in jumping into something that I could probably bring closure on in 7 years. Now, 7 turned into 15. Now, that's a totally different story. From my point of view, once you make the commitment, regardless how long the time it would actually take to bring it to fruition, you're in it for the long haul.
We are proud of what we did. We take great pride in the fact that we did it.
And I'm just very honored and very pleased that my fraternity, our fraternity, had a small role in ensuring that Dr. King's legacy would be on the mall for the ages.
Despite the financial success, there was still some controversy.
There's been some measure of criticism thrown around, bantied around about this memorial. People have said, well, isn't the holiday enough for Dr. King? And folks have said, well, you know, he wasn't a president. Why a memorial?
That statue embodies, for me, the entire movement. It is absolutely fitting because Dr. King and that movement forced America to live up to its Constitution. So when people said freedom for all, when they talked about we are, one nation, all Americans, free and true. So Dr. King and others made America, forced them to truly accept the Constitution and not talk about it, forced them to live it.
Well, this monument really is about Martin Luther King's ability to solve America's problems without violence. And none of these were black problems. These were American problems.
Dr. King became a drum major for justice, peace, and righteousness. And along with our brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, they marched to the beat that found them working for freedom and equality for all. Like the men of this brotherhood whose vision and leadership continue to shape and inspire our world today, we too must become motivated to see what part we can play, whether large or small, to help make our community, our nation, and our world a better place for everyone. It's time to live out the dream. I'm Hill Harper.
He invited me and Jean to stop off at Montgomery and see Coretta. And Andrea was just a baby and Yolanda was just a baby. So we really spent the first time talking about, what it means to be a good father. But I don't think we talked civil rights at all, or politics, or theology. We were just trying to be good fathers and husbands.